Hello, and welcome to the Holistic Living, Learning, and Loving podcast, where we are bringing you back to the basics.
We explore sustainable living and holistic health and strive for progress, not perfection.
So please join us on a wellness journey and feel empowered to make positive changes in your life.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are so glad that you found us today. Whether you have been listening for a while or just so happen to stumble upon us by watching other videos on YouTube or whatever, thank you for being here. We are so thankful for everyone that listens, people that give us kind comments. Like a friend of mine the other day said that it makes her happy to listen to us, that you and I are like these like hippie chick sister kind of vibes. And I was like, thank you. That is so cool. And then, of course, my dad is forever complimenting the podcast in every possible way he can. So it's really nice to get that feedback. So the last couple ones, we kind of, I guess, instead of having like a super strict like topic list or whatever script, we've kind of been like talking a little bit like more loosely instead. And so I'm going to kind of run with that on this one. I didn't provide a script. So that's kind of what I was thinking anyway. So today we're going to talk about cymatics. So I didn't even know what cymatics was until on the plane ride back from Switzerland. Oh, and by the way, I'm sick and I sound like totally stuffy, and I understand, and I'm not sorry because you should be sorry for me. No, just joking. But on the plane back, I watched like almost the whole season of I think it's Superpower on Gaia. And one of those episodes was about cymatics, or at least it featured it. This guy, John Stewart Reed, is a huge pioneer in cymatics, which cymatics is basically the visualization of sound, period. And there he developed the cymoscope, because before the cymoscope, they would just use, I'm sure you probably saw videos of a board of some kind and they have a speaker under it and they put sand on it and it vibrates and it kind of makes a cool pattern, like a geometric pattern. But he took it a step further and put water, like a petri dish almost, and then he vibrates it and he has a microscope on top of it and also something that's shining light into it, called the cymoscope. It blows my mind.
This is some cool stuff. Honestly, this is like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this goes really deep when you start looking into this. It's so much more than just sound making shapes when you play it. You know what I'm saying? The sound making shapes with sand or water or whatever on a plate is just a visualization of what sound and frequency can do.
Yeah, I really find it interesting, not even getting into that, just the initial component of what it looks like. And I want to play a video of what I'm talking about. So if you're on YouTube, you can see what I mean when I talk about the water and all that stuff, because this stuff just like blows my mind. It's so crazy. So this is the video. Nod your head if you hear it and see it.
Surface and subsurface of pure water, thereby transcribing sonic periodicities to water wavelet periodicities.
The fact that water moves in those ways, in those intricate, it's not just like a triangle or something, it's these insanely intricate three-dimensional properties, which is just so cool. It's like it mirrors nature with like Fibonacci sequences, and I don't know, it gets into all kind of like sacred geometry kind of stuff. And the mathematic side of that is kind of what really, like, even though I suck at math and I can never, oh yes, I'm this great mathematician, I can't even multiply 6 times 8. I couldn't tell you what that is. So I just really, from a mathematical standpoint and all that stuff, I just am so amazed by it. But what it really is it's nature in general. The sound, the vibrations, it's what nature can do, which is like wild.
Yeah, apparently what they say is the sound is the beginning. Apparently the ancients knew all about this, all right? Like, they were well versed in this. This is how they were technologically advanced. Yes. They knew how to use sound. Sound is the beginning of all things, of all matter. The Bible says in the beginning there was the word, right? Yeah. That's how it goes, right?
I'm I'll
In
take
the
your
beginning,
word.
there was the word, right? The word of
Yes.
God, and he spoke it into existence. And that's really true. Even scientifically, all matter begins as sound. And what did Nikola Tesla say? His famous saying is, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yes.
Because light is sound.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is energy. Mass
Yes.
makes up like nothing. It's all energy. Not nothing, but hardly anything.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And I used to get in these really long conversations with my friend Raquel when I first met her back in 2008. She was obsessed with quantum physics and electrons, and how electrons, when they're being watched, behave differently than if they're not being watched, and that kind of stuff. And I was just like so cool, but I didn't want to dive in the way I feel about cymatics. Like cymatics, I've watched so many YouTube videos by this professor, and I'm obsessed. I really think, I don't know, I'm really being called strongly to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's big, it's huge. They say we can the only thing in the universe that we can perceive is visible light, right? Light is the only frequency range that we can pull into the world that the conscious mind can perceive it, and everything else is beyond it. So, and light is frequency and vibration, sound. And light barely makes so the electromagnetic spectrum is only 5% or so of what exists in the universe. And
Mm-hmm.
light falls within that. So what I'm saying is we're hardly aware consciously, or we can hardly see a very small percentage of what exists in the universe.
Yeah. I am really keyed into it. And, you know, you said from the beginning there was word, and then we're talking about nature and the amazing way that it generates these cool structures and patterns and all that stuff. And also, you know, like cell reproduction and how that's a pattern in and of itself, the way it does that, which is almost it's frequency, the way it's moving and splitting and all that stuff. It, like, you can find cymatics patterns that actually kind of mirror the way that looks. And so it's like, wow, this is like higher power, you know, this, I don't know, I feel like it's God, you know.
Yes.
It's crazy, these intricacies. So it's just so cool. And then, you know, from the way everything works, you know, it's not by accident. But you know, the baby develops and stuff. They talk about the brainstem and things that develop first. And the sense of sound is one of the early developing senses. By the time a baby's 18 weeks old, they're going to be able to hear. It's so important, you know. It's
and
like
there's more connections, nerve connections to the brain from the ear than from the brain to the eyes or any other senses.
Yeah, and I heard specifically the tragus, the little dangly thing in the middle, is like a really important part because it also connects you with your vagal nerve. So that guy, that's like the professor, he's like, oh, whenever I see people having like pierced tragus, it's hard because he thinks it's so important, you know, to be able to hear and internalize vibrations.
Yeah. So they can even heal, like they have research now that shows that we can make stem cells regrow. Basically, they can stimulate stem cells to regrow bone tissue.
Yeah.
And heal, right? And apparently they say that ancients used sound and frequency to heal. And I think that's pretty amazing. I mean, I think in the future, we're going to be able to like regrow limbs and things from sound and frequency and definitely heal. I heard that somewhere on some like major woo woo thing I was listening to. It might have even been on Gaia. And they were talking about very technologically advanced, maybe alien civilizations being able to regrow limbs and stuff like that. And what if that was actually possible through sound and vibration?
Well, like what this
frequency.
guy was talking about is he was saying basically you can have a heart, right? And the heart cells and all that stuff. First of all, they say every cell has its own music. It has its own pattern. You can you can pull I guess they pull the sound files out of the cells somehow. I don't know how, like that's some intricate stuff on how that stuff works, but they can actually like play the recording of what the cell sounds like. So conceivably, if you had a recording of like a cell that was proper, perfectly healthy and fine, and you had that sound and you played it on a membrane, like another heart tissue membrane that was deformed or diseased or whatever, and maybe you could get everything to go back into their, I don't want to say crystalline structure, because that's what I'm thinking about from a geology standpoint, but like tissue structure.
Yeah.
Because the tissue structure is like a crystalline structure, and if it's in disarray, then it's not functioning properly. So maybe you could use it to heal by putting those things back the way they're supposed to be.
Honestly,
from a cellular membrane level.
That makes a ton of sense. And that's probably what the ancients were probably doing. And I think they probably already know that,
Yeah. Another thing is how music affects you and vibrations and all that stuff. He also did a study, and I say this loosely. Did I find the paper? I didn't find the paper. I didn't really look very hard, but they say they did a study where they took a vial of blood from a donor bag or whatever, and they split it in 2 vials, and one of the vials went in a chamber that they played music in, and the other vial of blood went in a different chamber that had no sound whatsoever, was isolated. And after 20 minutes, they tested the red blood cells, and like, the red blood cells die off after a while, if you're at room temperature or whatever, I guess, if it's out of the body. And the ratios between the ones exposed to music and the ones that weren't, it was like 10 times higher, the amount of red blood cells that were left in that vial versus the one that was quiet.
Wow.
So it kind of makes you think that maybe the music was energizing the cells so that they didn't lose their life in a, environment that wasn't conducive to it.
Yeah. So I was just watching a video that was talking about how when we breathe, the air passing through, our nasal passageways, through our lungs makes a sound, a frequency. And that frequency or sound energizes the air that we breathe and, provides the energized air that we need for our body, so it's just really amazing. Like this applies to everything.
Yes. Like from a basic fundamental, like I'm saying, like cell membrane level.
Yeah, it's huge. Like what I was just reading, like frequency and sound, I keep using them interchangeably. I'm just going to say sound can change the way our DNA is expressed, how we think, and our state of awareness. They can use sound to change the way we think.
It's wild because powerful. You've probably seen or heard like the YouTube videos where it's like at a certain hertz or whatever, and they say it's for mind clearing or whatever, binaural beats and stuff like that. And people are starting to, acknowledge this, I think, but it's still definitely viewed as a pseudoscience, without a doubt. But I heard that guy, John, that professor, he actually said that they got some of music therapy into some medical publications, or at least one medical textbook in the last couple of years. So maybe it's coming around, but it's just amazing. So like the cell having its own music is basically comprised of its own respiration and vibrations, just like what you're saying with your own nose.
Yep.
So sound can influence cells to wake up from dysfunction and reshape its internal composition as well. So, plays a bunch of cymatics and shows what a cancer cell basically looks like. And it's just really disorganized, whereas a regular cell looks beautifully intricate, just like the vibrations shown on the cymoscope. And, if you can maybe get that disarray back in check with the cancer cells, possibly it would cure cancer. I mean, who knows? But it's like cool to think that maybe that could be.
I believe it. Honestly, I believe it 100%. It's just there's no studies. Nobody's gonna fund the studies in it, because there's no money.
The sound, sound's out there. Like you can't patent sound,
right?
you know?
So that would take they make trillions on healthcare and all that. So I wouldn't expect to see a ton of studies in that, but I wouldn't dismiss it because of that, because there's just so much. I mean, you can just go online and see so much. It's very, very convincing. I don't think, for me personally, I don't need a study to prove it. I mean, it's extremely convincing.
So I might be wondering, I mean, I wonder about the implications of health stuff with the cells. I mean, there's some different stuff out there about aging, which we just talked about, and how that can help. And then cancer, disorganization, regeneration of cells. There's just so many applications for it. They say that, certain hertzes have certain qualities. Certain ones might do like mental health stuff and some other like reduce anxiety, and maybe another one might ease inflammation, all sorts of different things they say that these hertzes can affect.
They have technology out there that where you can use this already. Like my friend Danae Grow and her parents have, I believe it's called a med bed, and it like puts off certain frequencies and such, and you lay on it for a certain time period. And I mean, she said that there was someone whose tumor growth shrank after being on it. Now we cannot prove that it was because of that, but I mean, that's pretty cool. And I'm sure a lot of people there are a lot of people who have these beds in your areas. I'm sure somebody's got one somewhere, and it's probably a cool thing to check out.
My chiropractor has like a I think he called it like a biomat, and has like crystals in it or something, but I'm not sure. I don't think it made noise or anything. So
I don't know. Let me look up. I think what they actually call it is a quantum wellness bed.
And maybe it's the same because it's like something about light, infrared, heat, sound, and microcurrent stimulation.
Quantum energy wellness bed. This advanced technology accelerates wound healing, alleviates pain, and combats inflammation in subcutaneous tissues, all in a non-invasive and natural way.
I haven't really looked into it, but also like I know sound baths are a way that you can get these vibrations. We have one in Mandeville tomorrow, actually, a sound bath, and those are really nice with crystal bowls and stuff.
It's cool.
Have you ever been to one of those?
I don't do anything. I'm super cheap. I like if I see something like that, I'm going to try to do this on my own, a DIY version or something. But if I was dealing with some kind of like serious illness, maybe cancer or some, like Nick has thyroid issues, I would probably look into doing some things like that. I would do it.
Well, sometimes they have community sound baths, and this one tomorrow is donation based, They'll just do it for new moons or something, and it's outside in a public space. So it's not, you just like go interject yourself.
That's cool.
But they also have gongs and Tibetan bowls and tuning forks and like all sorts of different things that you can use. And this guy, John Reed, he thinks that cells will just absorb whatever frequency they need and kind of be done with it. But I don't know how in the world you would know that.
Oh, they know all kinds of things. I mean, they could watch the cells as they're absorbing this frequency under microscopes and stuff, I would imagine.
That's like some intense research.
Oh, yeah, they do this. They do that kind of stuff, though. I mean, they do some crazy research. It's really amazing. Science is amazing when it's used properly.
Is, but it's so heavily focused on pharmaceutical. Unfortunately, you have some of the best minds that are just obsessed with just that, when they can't research this other stuff that is probably really cool, but maybe people don't want that to be a thing, and the pharmaceuticals, why they're making so much money, why would they want to do that? But then you would think that they would be like, this could be the new thing,
But they can't, because they can't make money on it. If they can't make money on it, they're not interested in it being in the new thing,
I don't know. I have some ideas about it, but who knows if I'm just off my rocker. I think Mike probably thinks so. He's like, oh, sound again? Like, we're talking about sound again?
Like, sound, I was just watching this video, 11, Dr. Luc Montagnier, I don't know how you say it, spontaneously created DNA in a tube of water using sound. I'm not absolutely certain, but I believe they had this little experiment of creating a little mini universe, or galaxy, maybe it was.
I think maybe what it might mean is like the cymatic pattern looks exactly like DNA, but I don't
know that's not what it means.
That sounds crazy.
That people, look, you have to, we're so stuck in thinking the way that we think, that we just are so quick to dismiss the possibilities. Like I said, light and the electromagnetic spectrum only make up 5% of what we can perceive in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is beyond that, and we know that. So we're not perceiving hardly anything of what exists.
Yeah.
We know nothing. So
What's
much is
this guy's
possible.
name?
Dr. Luc Montagnier in
Says,
2011.
a recent experiment showed that the DNA genetic information can be transmitted into water when the DNA and the water are subjected jointly to an electromagnetic field with 7 hertz frequency. Wow, he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner.
It's crazy. Like, people are doing this all around us. You would think we would all know about this, right? You would think you'd be hearing about all of this stuff everywhere because it's crazy. It's huge, but you're not.
Unfortunately, it's people know a lot about like horrible things that happen everywhere. It's like everybody's obsessed with knowing like who died where and all, all these bad things instead of like focusing on this kind of stuff.
Just nobody's covering this stuff. Nobody, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
This is the stuff
I feel like
that
I would have to
everybody needs to
read
know.
this paper. So the DNA genetic information is transmitted to pure water, imprinting onto it the structure of the DNA molecule. After several hours, as final result, a replication of the DNA can arise in pure water. I mean, this is a scientific paper I see online, so it's by HAL Open Science, so I can link it if anybody wants to dig deeper into that.
It's pretty cool stuff, though.
It's crazy. It takes my brain a little while to process it.
Yeah, look, I've been trying to get myself out. Honestly, I'm a very open-minded person. I think everybody at this point knows that. Because, I mean, you could just tell. And I think people are just so guarded. We have just been programmed to think like, oh, that couldn't be possible. That couldn't be possible. Oh my God, yeah, right. Like I said, like we only know 5%. We can only perceive 5% of what exists. I mean, y'all, things are possible. So much is possible. You have to get out of that box.
Yeah, and it's hard because I feel like some people don't even want to accept it at all. Like, they don't want to get out the box for whatever
they're
reason.
Comfortable, and they just want things to stay the same as they always were. People are resistant to change. They just don't want things to be different than what they've always known.
But I just don't get it.
It's like if you stick to that, you're limiting yourself extremely. Like science and humans are not smart. We're not smart. We don't know everything. We can't prove everything. We can't be the line in the sand that says this is right and this is wrong, or this is true and this is false. We don't have that ability. Putting too much faith in humankind.
Yeah. So he did say that you don't want if you are going to do sound therapy or whatever, that you shouldn't listen to it above about 70 or 85 decibels. There is an amount that's too much. I was really playing with this last week, and I was sitting in front of a speaker at full volume, and I was like, is this good for me? Probably not. And then also the problem with YouTube and stuff like that is that those files are compressed, like MP3 and MP4 files, I guess. They're compressed. And so the sound, the hertz is not accurate. So I don't think it can be. That's
what I was about to ask. So is it beneficial at all to listen to solfeggio? Is it solfeggio frequencies? Because I have them, like I downloaded them on my Apple Music app. Is that beneficial at all to listen to
I don't think so, because what John Reed Stewart said is that they're compressed, and the compression messes with the frequencies, I guess.
I find that interesting though, because maybe you could look this up. They have somebody from years ago, like this is in the past, but not the ancient past, just the past.
Not the ancient past.
A man growing corn and other crops that grew extremely, extremely high, and really, really, really big crops. And it's because he played classical music to them like every day.
Well, I think it's good. It's still good to hear music.
Yeah, but like not any music, because I heard like certain kind of music, probably like rock and rap, can be like, or like the opposite.
Oh, well, maybe it's this. It says very high frequencies are typically the first data to be eliminated during compression of MP3 and MP4 files. So you do take away some of the, I mean, I don't know what frequency it is specifically, but it sounds like some of the frequencies are eliminated during compression. So I guess for your best quality, you have to download like a raw file online. It would be like, very big. But this guy, he actually did some CymaScope things with this singer, this man, and he did some CymaScopes while they were playing their music, getting down to like 10 and 12 hertz, which is supposed to be good for your vagus nerve.
So, since you're talking about low hertz, they say that the lower the frequency, the bigger it of
Power.
I want to say mass, but I don't know. The bigger of things it makes, like the galaxy, the Earth.
Oh, yeah.
And the higher their frequency, the smaller. That's, I don't know. It was on something I was just watching, and I thought that
really
was
cool.
very interesting.
Yeah, and like my dad and I have been talking. My dad used to be a drummer for a long time. I'm rolling my eyes because he used to be a drummer. He should still be a drummer. Well, maybe. So what we were talking about is, what if sound is the fountain of youth? That was my first hypothesis. And then my second hypothesis is sound the reason why all of these old like rockers that are musicians who like have lived hard lives on all kind of drugs and on the road and all this stuff, eating garbage all the time, why they live to be so old, like your Mick Jaggers and all Ozzy Osbourne, these people that conceivably shouldn't be alive, but they're all alive and they all have been exposed to those frequencies where they could feel it inside their body all the time. And I wonder what that does.
I don't know. I mean, that's a good theory.
So then my next hypothesis is, so my dad's a drummer, and he said, well, why do the drummers always die early? Oh, well, I'm thinking about the cell disorganization that happens when you are not harmonious. So the drummers are in the back behind all the speakers. And my dad said that you can hardly even like discern the sounds because they're all warped because he's behind. Oh. So they're distorted. And this guy, John Stewart Reed, was talking about how distortion can also affect cells. Like with cancer, they're distorted. If you play a song that's not harmonious, you don't like it. You know, it's not good for us to hear that.
Right. So. And since we're talking about things that can cause the distortion, things that can cause that are EMFs from 5G towers, Wi-Fi, things like that.
Oh, God.
And other things too. But that's definitely a big one.
It's really, really interesting. Like when you start thinking about this stuff.
They also say you can put out fires with sound. You could look that up. That's for sure. Like these kids, I think it was kids or something, or young adults maybe, who came up with this. And he was saying like it blows his mind that we're still putting out fires with water, or struggling to put out fires when we can put them out with sound.
It's all some wild stuff.
Yeah, and it's like, why don't we all know this? We should all know this. It's huge. And the more you look into it and you realize this is real stuff, you're like, it is the foundation of all things. It is the beginning of all things. Because sound is in every part of life. It plays a role in every part of life.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's like a video online of some sort of sound, a bass machine. Yeah, there's some videos on YouTube about it. So, wow, another thing that Rachel said that I was like, yeah, I don't know, you're a little bullshitter.
Look, you gotta
see. I'm still on the fence. I'm like, well, that kind of sounds crazy. Let me try to disprove it, but I come around. I would say.
I mean, the more we all wake up and open our eyes and see the possibilities, the more we can move forward as a society into bigger and better things. And I think everybody's so stuck on technology, like, iPhones and computers. And honestly, I think we're headed in the wrong direction. I don't think that's the way of the future. I don't think that that's what's going to make us more advanced. I think the ancients, the more you look into that, like they were advanced. I mean, look at the pyramids and everything that they created. I mean, you've got so many different opinions on how all those things happen. I listened to some very interesting people on that, but they were advanced in different ways. They didn't have computers and cell phones and all that, but they were able to do all of these things without the equipment we have today. And how? Because
Yeah,
they
like the
understood
ancient,
sound, light,
yeah,
frequency, energy. They knew that these were the,
they understood the sun,
they
the
knew that these
ancient
were
Incans and stuff.
the Egyptians, all of this. They knew that these were the foundations of life and everything that makes this world, this universe, this galaxy, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Nikola Tesla said,
Yeah,
the secrets of the universe are in, what is it? Energy, frequency.
yeah, that's really interesting. So, he did say that live music is better than playing it on the radio or whatever. So getting out to live shows is great. Sound baths, live shows would be great as long as it's like harmonious music, which I feel like all music. I mean, I guess there's some weird stuff out there nowadays, but
I don't know. You'd
mostly
have to look into that because I don't know if all music is good.
no, it is. So in part of his experiments, with the cymoscope, the red blood cells, the ones that were in the machine with the music had 10 times more red blood cells still living than the ones in the quiet, right? So he tried different types of music, classical, modern stuff, different genres, male voice, different parameters, right? White noise and stuff like that. And like actually classical didn't do better. It was mostly the modern music, and it seemed like it was the bass heavy stuff maybe
Really?
was more significant and male voice was good, and white noise actually I think was still good too. So
Okay. Well, that's
I mean classical
interesting.
music is a lot of, I guess, highs. I don't know. I think they have bass too, like the different instruments that are bassy. The bass. So another experiment that he did that was really cool. So he put water on the cymoscope under a certain frequency, right? And it takes a little while to get the pattern going, right? It takes a couple seconds. So he would do it whatever frequency, and at 6 seconds, it had realized the full significant pattern, the one like I showed earlier. And then if he did it again, stop the music or stop the vibration, pressed it again, and maybe that time it took 5 seconds. And then he'd stop it, do it again. That time it took 5 seconds again or whatever. And then the next time was 4. The next time was 3. So the water seemed like it had a memory for how it was supposed to be shaped before. So it's
Yes.
retaining memory of that shape, and it's quickly going back into that pattern.
That's something I was going to talk about in our next podcast about structured water. But water definitely has a memory.
Yeah, that was really cool. And you can actually see the experiment on YouTube as well and how quick it's happening. So I thought that was really, really, really neat. So like they were saying, you can apply a frequency to drink or whatever, but I guess you'll talk about that. So he was talking about the vagus nerve. So that's the longest nerve in the body, connecting the top part of our body to the bottom part of our body. There's a lot of stuff online right now about vagus nerve therapy and using it to calm yourself and things like that. But the vagus nerve leaves our brainstem, and the first place it goes is to our ears. So very important ear stuff. And then it goes to the pharynx and the larynx, so that we can stimulate ourselves passively by listening, but also actively by speaking, which is kind of what you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
So so then conceivably we can also do that by, people that chant Om.
Yeah.
Doing that is actually stimulating our vagus nerve and calming us down. So I always thought it was so freaking ridiculous in yoga and stuff when they would want you to like take a big breath and then sigh out and go like, ah, or whatever, And I'd be like, oh my God, I feel so stupid doing this.
I was watching some stuff, another series on Gaia that was talking about doing stuff like that, making those sounds and certain sounds. And I didn't understand it at the time because at that time, the only thing I had heard about cymatics was that one episode on Gaia.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that I'm understanding sound, I will take all of that seriously from this point forward.
Well, and they say that's what, the monks, like the
Yeah.
Tibetan monks and stuff, that's what they're doing. You always hear these clips of them and they're making those sounds together in harmony. They're
Mm.
doing that in an acoustically specific building. They're doing it for a reason. That's what they're doing. They're leveling, I think, their like consciousness in some way by doing that. Or they're doing something. I don't know. I'm not a
It's
Tibetan monk.
amazing how they all knew this, right? Like it goes back to that. How did the ancients and all know this? Like when you look at the churches, you know how they have the stained glass windows. A lot of
Yes.
times, or always, they're in the shapes of what these sounds make. When you put
Mm-hmm.
the sand or the water and you make these sounds, they make those geometrical shapes that are very much the same as what's on the stained glass, the shapes on the stained glass windows in churches.
Yes.
And each the geometrical shapes represent a certain frequency, a certain sound, which means something.
Yes, they're telling a story of some kind
Yeah.
um in that. So it's just so interesting, and then they'll be acoustically specific as well in certain rooms. This is the room that they're probably making noises in, and all this different stuff. And that's what John Stewart Reed also talks about, that he had a crazy experience. He went to the Great Pyramid, and this was like many many years ago when he was young, because he's older, and like noticed, I guess they were there by themselves, like no one else was in there, and they went into the sarcophagus, which was open. There was no mummy in there anymore, but they went in there, and he started, because he's like this engineer for vibration, all stuff, he started making noises, and he just felt it crazy, I guess, in his body for making these noises. So he went back with his cymatics equipment and did some more investigations into the sound, because the Great Pyramids were specifically acoustic instruments as well. Like they were made very specifically to get maximum resonance inside of the sarcophagus. Like they were probably doing some sort of ritualistic stuff. Who knows what they were doing in there?
I don't know. I think there's so much to do, like pyramids having to do with energy. And I think some pyramids, I'm not sure about the ones in Egypt, but they have the ones in South America many times are over streams.
Mm-hmm.
And now we know about structured water, which we'll talk about in the next podcast, and energy. And it has a lot to do with energy, sound, all of that, I believe.
Yeah, it's like just
They were
really
harnessing
cool.
something.
I mean, he said that when he brought his cymatic stuff back, and he was using a kind where it was like over a board, basically. It wasn't the cymoscope with the water cuvette, which is way more interesting because it's 3-dimensional. But the sand board experiment is still cool.
Yeah.
But he said and showed pictures that when he would make certain frequencies, that they actually resembled hieroglyphics, which was
Yeah.
like really, really cool. Amazing that it makes sense, if you think about it, but it's just so neat. Like it
Yeah.
just blows my mind. So cool.
I want to know what the ancients knew. They knew what was up.
I don't
They
know
knew.
why. I don't know, Rachel. Maybe you don't want to know what the ancients knew, because why is there no knowledge of this anymore? Like
Well,
what?
that's a good question. Why do you think it's because they knew something that was harmful? It could be that
No, I
everything
don't
got
think it's
wiped
that it's
out.
harmful. I just think that's like they didn't want that knowledge out there.
Someone didn't want that knowledge out
Yeah,
there.
because I don't know. I mean, this is also whatever, but like, you can't enslave someone to follow the system and all that stuff if you think like this. I don't think,
Yeah.
but everything else has been showing us that we have all these bad products, the bad food that does bad things, the seed oils, the fluoride, whatever, vaccines, so many things you start to question. Is this really for my benefit? Pharmaceuticals, everything. Is this for my benefit, or is this using me to be like trapped in this world that's just materialistic, capitalistic, money, 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 dopamine hits from looking at my phone all day, another distraction,
Everything is distractions. The more you look into this, the more you realize that all these things that we consider conveniences, technological advances, they all harm our consciousness, our awareness on
Mhm.
some level. They all harm the frequencies, the sound, the light within us, all of the things that make us powerful, that make us more aware, that allow us to be free from the system. They all
Mhm.
hurt all of those things.
Yes. So it's like I feel with trepidation that there's a reason why these people, that this information doesn't really exist, or
Oh
that it
yeah,
exists but it's like pseudo, why is it still a pseudoscience,
100%.
or whatever.
When they have you have your archaeologists, but then you have these other people who are really into history, and they use what the archaeologists have uncovered and discovered, and they study it and study it, and these people have these amazing theories that make so much sense, and they want to look into it further, but the archaeologists, almost just like science is today, same thing, shut it down, dismiss it. They won't look into it further, and it's like, why wouldn't you want to look into this further? It's amazing, it's you intriguing, why wouldn't we want to know this? They dismiss it, they play it off, and they're hiding something because there's some powerful power at B that doesn't want it known. If we uncover that history, then that will uncover some truths they don't want us to know.
Yes, it's all crazy stuff.
Start looking into history though. Like these people, one of them, I'll try to figure out what his name was. He has a documentary on Netflix right now. Yeah. His name is Graham Hancock. Graham Hancock, formerly a foreign correspondent for The Economist, has been an international best-selling author for more than 30 years with a series of books notably Fingerprints of the Gods, Magicians of the Gods, and America Before, which investigate the controversial possibility of a lost civilization of the Ice Age destroyed in a global cataclysm some 12,000 years ago. Graham is the presenter of the hit Netflix documentary series Ancient Apocalypse. Look for the second season beginning on October 16th. But you have him and you have these other people. I don't know what you would call them.
Oracles. No, I don't know.
I thought it would say in that description, but these people who look into history, they're not archaeologists, but they study history intensely.
Historians?
Huh?
Historians?
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Very interesting people.
Yeah. So I was talking earlier about the vagus. You can actually reduce and eliminate chronic inflammation by stimulating the vagus nerve at 5 to 10 hertz. So it's like really, really, really low, which is probably like a very bassy kind of sound that you would make. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe if you had like a frequency meter, you could figure out your own range or whatever. But I guess, well, maybe not, because he says it's below audibility. So probably not. You can't get there. Because it reduces inflammation because you rebalance the cytokines, he said, improve cancer outcomes, boost sexual function and life expectancy. So he's a really big proponent of that, like low hertz kind of sounds. He said that you can listen to certain music and stuff. He recommended a bunch of people that he works with, and he says that the guy can get sound down to those hertz. But he says you can't use wireless headphones to listen to music, or else you're not going to get the full quality of the frequencies, because I guess in the Bluetooth it's almost like compression again, compressing the sound, I guess. So he recommends just wired headphones, buying downloads, not MP3s. Anders Holt is like the musician that he recommends. He has some music that, I don't know, it's kind of like an operatic guy singing. It's interesting.
What do you mean by downloads and not MP3s? Like, are you talking about the raw files? Like your dad?
Yes.
And how do you get that?
Like, for instance, this guy, I mean, I don't know. This guy has on his website where you can download the songs.
So yeah, this reminds me of I don't know if I told you how lately I always loved music. But lately listening to music has just been hard for me. It's always been this way for me, but it's just, for some reason, it's just, I don't even want to listen to it anymore. I just get so emotional, whether it's in a good way or a bad way. Music just makes me get makes me think really deeply about like memories, or I just get an intense thought, and it like messes with my emotions a lot. And sometimes it might be good emotions, but it just really kind of like throws me off.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it has anything to do with like sound and frequency, or just I don't know, me. I don't know.
Well, I know like music is very like I can listen to something and be transported back to a specific moment in time of listening to that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the very few ways that I have of exact memories because my brain has repressed so many memories from childhood and then up till now even um that it's like I can't remember hardly anything. But whenever I hear a song, I go back to a very specific moment with it, you know, so
Yeah.
or moments. So yeah, I see what you're saying. And sometimes like I was listening to the Sia Dressed in Black album or whatever. And I used to love that. So I like to save things, one song in my library of stuff that I loved so that if, one day when I'm scrolling through to find something, I'll see it and I'll want to go listen to it again. But anyway, I listened to it again and it was the album I played when I was driving down to go to Mama Rita's funeral. And so that album is forever, especially like one specific song, is forever in my head as that memory.
You know, I just had a thought. Light bulb. So water has memory, and every molecule in our body is 99% water. We are mostly water. So what if when we hear these sounds, these frequencies, it's imprinted, is the water in our bodies is holding on to that memory.
Wow.
What if?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Kind of
really
makes
cool.
sense, right?
Yes. So you hear it, you're vibrating, and then you're able to, like, is bringing something in your memory center.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. And so I bet you struggle with that because you have songs that remind you of bad things or whatever, good
Bad
things.
things, but not even. And that's what gets me because it's not even, honestly, yeah, bad things, but not bad things. Like some things are really good, but they make me emotional. I don't know how to, it's really hard to explain.
Because was the memory when you were emotional too? Or you weren't emotional at all?
I don't know if it's always just memories. I think it's also just, it makes me think of things.
Like
right?
the words maybe are making you ponder
The
things?
words and the sounds bring me back to
Wow.
time periods. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like especially a lot of 90s rock
Oh,
music
I feel that
brings
way
me
about a
back
lot
to
of
my
stuff.
childhood instantly. And not just a specific memory, but
Just in
a
general.
time period. You know what I mean? And then I just started getting into a cycle of memories and thinking of going back in time. And I guess maybe I just personally don't like to do that. And maybe that's why.
I do not like to go back in time either, but you know who's bad about it is my dad. He is constantly like, oh, well, I used to have this, and if I had it now, it would be so much easier. And I'm like, well, that's irrelevant, you know, because we're in the now, and like what you used to have and the way things used to be has nothing to do with what we're doing right now, you know?
Yeah, I'm not a much of a reliver of the past. I'm not big on that.
Yeah. So I'm constantly like, all right, let's bring it back to the now. So yeah, that like there's just like all these really cool implications about sound.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up another one before we move on because they say that the frequency that when bees flutter their wings, the sound that it puts off creates the shape of the hexagon in their honeycomb.
Oh,
which is really cool because we'll talk about in structured water in the next episode, that's the shape that structured water takes on, is a hexagonal shape. But yeah, it's that's what they say creates the hexagons in the honeycomb is the frequency, the fluttering of their wings. They also say that the frequency of bees buzzing is very relaxing and calming, and people like you can go sit by your hives and it's calming. I know Nick always loves to sit by the hive, and he didn't even know this. He just always does. He sits there, and I told him about it. I was like, I bet it's because of that.
That's amazing because it's probably really low frequency. So
Yeah.
that's like supposedly the really healing ones, maybe.
Probably.
I don't know a lot about frequencies right now, but I will because I'm like obsessed with this. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like big things are afoot.
I highly encourage everyone to look into this because I believe this is the future of health and healing and everything.
Yeah, I'm excited. All right, guys, we hope that you liked the episode. I hope that something we said made you want to go research it some more like me. I'm obsessed with John Stewart Reed. and all the videos about cymatics online. And then I feel like my next thing I'm going to get into is probably sacred geometry, even though, like I said, I hate math, but the stuff like 369 numerology and stuff is really intriguing to me right now.
Well,
But
math is
anyway,
fun when it correlates
yeah,
with
when it
something
makes
very
sense.
interesting.
Yeah, because otherwise it's like, I don't know, why should I care kind of
It
feeling about a lot
makes
of
you
math.
know why you should care about math.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool. So please like, subscribe, share with a friend, and comment.
But communicate with us. We want to talk back. You know, like, this isn't a podcast about us just telling you facts, and you know, we want to hear your opinion. We're just trying to put ideas out there, get you thinking, get your mind ticking, and let's talk about it. Let's, you know,
Let's
tell
open
us
a
what you think.
dialogue. What do you think about this? I
Yeah.
would like to know. Let me know. Let us know what you think. All right, guys. We'll see you again next week. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.